Hi, my name is Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses with healthyblackwoman.com and successfulblackwoman.com. I'm here with my good friend Shaquita Graham from lovingtheblackman.com and ateco.com. How are you doing today, Shaquita?
Great, Noma. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Our topic today is one that seems to be developing every day. There's an article that went up a couple of days ago at healthyblackwoman.com that said that Tamar Braxton had been fired from The Real. This is a talk show, panel show on Fox. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting about this story is that Tamar's husband, Vince, is one of the producers on the show. He, you know, there's consequent articles about what his role or how he reacted to how she was fired. But it was very interesting that just before she announced that she had been fired, she sent out an Instagram that was a whole paragraph, and she said that someone very close to her that she stupidly trusted had betrayed her. And then when I reckon those who follow her will still wonder, whoa, well, who betrayed her? What did they betray her for? Then a notice came out that said that her and Fox have decided to part ways and she'll no longer be on the show The Real. What are your thoughts?
Well, actually, I initially wasn't very interested in this story because it was just like, you know, gossip. But then I also saw an article from Gossip that, hey, they figured out who stabbed her in the back. And I found that there were so many takeaways from this because, first of all, everybody kind of jumped to the conclusion that it was Lonnie Love, I guess, and Tamira, some of her co-hosts. And this was like a Black show. I mean, it had an ethnic feel to it. It definitely had a cultural feel to it. But according to this article on Gossip, it says one of the executive producers, Rachel Misk or whatever, Becky, I don't know what it was, but a white woman who's an executive producer, supposedly, allegedly, reportedly, is the one who had her fired. And I just felt that there were so many takeaways in this. I didn't even know where to begin. Number one, why is there, again, this theme we saw just recently with Huffington Post, these back rooms filled with white women or white people who are running the content, running the operations of supposedly Black intellectual property. And that's why I'm so passionate about putting out platforms that we run, just like Voice does with Your Black World.
The Real is definitely a minority show. It's not all Black. I believe one of the ladies on there is from Singapore, or at least she's Asian. And then another one is Hispanic, and then there's Lonnie, who's obviously African-American, there's Tamar, who's African-American, and so on.
When I say Black, I just mean melanated.
Right, yeah. It's definitely a show which offers us diversity. I personally don't watch the show, but when I've seen little clips of it or heard about it, I kind of smiled and thought, wow, that's nice. There's a show with a panel of a diverse group of minority women and predominantly Black women on the panel. So they should be getting a voice. What was interesting to me was one of the reasons why they said that Tamar was let go. And again, this is all information that we're getting from blogs and news sites. But one of the things that they said about Tamar was that she didn't get along with people in the background, so the producers and so forth, which we're now finding out was primarily white women. Then they said that she was too, the word that I heard used was she's too ghetto. They actually did polls and studies and things to see how each person on the panel was received by the audience, and Tamar was not well received. Not only by the audience, but by advertisers, and the people in the background were saying she's very, very difficult to work with. And again, this is not my opinion. This is just what I've been reading because I decided to follow the story when I saw it. The other thing that I wanted to also add to that you said was that they have a panel of women who are minority women, but in the background, the people running the show are actually white women. And no matter what you say, we're never going to get an authentic show with Black women's views and the different ways that they act and the different ways that they feel. We're never going to get it to be authentic if the people who are running it in the background are not Black. That's just a fact. And Tamar's experience is a testament to that.
So yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't really go for the title of minority and different things like that, just because all around the world, melanated people are the majority, up to 90%. But the point of the matter is, like you said, white people controlling Black intellectual property is a problem. And I mean, me personally, I love it when they put Black people off of white stuff, because I think we need to get to a place to say, you know what, I really don't need this. I want to have my own thing. I want to create something that's authentically coming from me. I don't want to be censored. And that's probably why they threw out this whole thing. Well, Tamar is not being, whatever we want her to be, because that's the constant theme throughout anything you do that has to be white control. You have to be subject to them. Your mannerisms and all of these things have to reflect what they think is right. Your very thoughts have to be what they approve of. And that is, again, another takeaway of this. That's why I find it important to have platforms like the one we're developing, marriedwomensbusiness.com, because, and again, what Voice has here, because we need to hear our voices without the censorship and without the advice and the so-called guidance and opinions of white people sometimes. My goodness, the girl can't just be herself and always perceived as, she was perceived as so-called ghetto. Well, what is that supposed to mean? You know what I'm saying? She has a cultural nuance about herself that should be respected, just like Becky or anybody else.
Like Becky. That's another point that's a good point when you say, what does ghetto mean? The truth is, whatever is being labeled ghetto, there are people who resonate with Tamar. There are people who are like Tamar. There are people who like to see Tamar, and there are people who feel like, wow, Tamar acts like me and she's on TV. So I definitely hear what you're saying with that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was that when this news story broke out, there was this thing looming that her co-host had stabbed her in the back, which goes on to something else that we see a lot, where people just assumed that because a lot of people have had an experience where they're in a corporate setting, a Black woman, maybe there's only the two of you, 2 Black women, maybe 3 Black women, that you would think that being that there's a couple of you, maybe a few of you, that you would band together and help each other progress through the workplace. But a lot of people report the exact opposite, where there's stabbing in the back, there's meanness. If she's your boss, she's constantly criticizing you, and you're just having a really bad experience. You already have to deal with the racism from the non-Black people, but then here's this person who you would have thought would be your supporter and protector, and is now turning into another nightmare. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I call that the butter biscuit fight. It's like people buy into white supremacy. Black people buy into white supremacy. Black women buy into white supremacy too often. Not all of us, of course. And I believe there's a growing majority of us who really want to buy out of it. And I think that what we, need to do, again, is cultivate places, safe spaces, like we have in Your Black World most of the time, to say, or with something that is cultivating, to say, all of these different voices of Black people can come together and be respected, can be heard, not censored. And that's what I really take away from it. And this whole thing that you find in white supremacy, where you have to be subject to their opinion and value of you, is so disgusting to me. I just get so tired of people feeling like, you have to actually weigh yourself on the scale of white supremacy, and you're always going to come up short. And I think that Black women and Black people in those corporate environment, in those spaces, should band together. That's the only way that we are going to see ourselves overcoming. And we need to care for each other and to protect each other. Like white supremacists, they will protect mass murders and serial killers that come from their organization or affiliation or whatever you want to call it. Black people will find one character flaw in somebody and we're ready to get our crosses, we're ready to burn them, we're ready to talk about them. And I think that's something that we really need to stop doing.
I agree. I have a course at the Black Business School that I teach with. It's a lecture series that I teach with Dr. Boyce Watkins, and it's called How to Get Off the Corporate Plantation.
Yeah.
Fire Your Boss, and it's basically about. It was created specifically for Black people who've had bad experiences and have experienced racism to the point that it becomes unbearable, and they're literally pushing you out, so you might as well get out. I had that experience, and I decided, obviously, to quit my job some years ago. And one of the things that I can share about it is that people don't stay on bad jobs or on these what we call plantations, not necessarily because they want to. It's because they've been convinced that the only way they can eat or the only way they can feed their families is if they cling to this thing. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line to me, and I think everybody should ask themselves this question, is your sense of self-worth and your dignity for sale? And once you start thinking about that and meditating on it on a daily basis, when you deal with all that stuff that you deal with on the workplace, maybe they pay you a good deal of money and you're feeling like you're successful, but you have to question yourself, is your dignity and your self-worth really worth the money that they're paying you? Because the truth is, when you get out on your own, let's just be honest, and if you're making six figures, you're not going to jump out and make six figures that first year. Has it been done? Of course it's been done. Can it be done? Of course it can be done. But for most people, that's just not how it's going to work, because they've had structures that they've built over years and years and years and years, generations even. And when you go to work for them, the structure's already there. And part of the problem is that the racism has been institutionalized and built into that structure. Mm-hmm. So you're now getting off and you're trying to build a new structure. And the truth is, it may not pay you as well as they did. But the thing that I've had to remind myself, and I can just share with everybody, is you just have to think about your dignity and your self-worth, and start building from there. It may not be a lot in the beginning, but if you really, really stick it out and you work hard and you have partnerships like Shaquita and I have, and you get on platforms like we are on the Your Black World YouTube channel right now, you can get far and you can start to build an income and you can start to respect yourself and say, you know what, I may have financially stalled a little bit, but I'm moving forward to something very, very, very meaningful. And that's something.
And I mean, two more things that, I really look at in this situation. Like you said, you have to be prepared. You have to know what you're going into on a corporation. Instead of thinking that you won a prize by you having, you're having this six-figure experience maybe, or whatever it is, you should understand that this is a plantation and understand how things play out on a plantation. If you have Becky as your boss, you kind of know what to expect from Becky. You're not surprised, so therefore you're prepared. And one thing I love about Tamar's situation is I don't think she's going to be hurt financially. And that's probably why they, again, said she's difficult. Maybe she wasn't cooning. Maybe she wasn't, stifling her voice and her ideas.
Because she wasn't scared. She wasn't scared.
Yeah, she wasn't afraid. She was just being free. She was like, hey, I'll take the paycheck for a little while. And if you have a problem with it, then bye. Mm-hmm. Because she has other options. So like me, I haven't left the corporate plantation because, it's very beneficial for me. And one thing that I try to assist other people with doing as I do is put yourself in a high income career so that you can invest in a way off of the plantation. You have to be that field slave that's out there, planning, plotting. Okay, I know that this day is going to come to an end one way or another. So I'm planning for my freedom. And that's why at techco.teachable.com, I have your six-figure tech career, because that's a way for you to get a high income, and you won't be phased when, anybody, your oppressor, whatever, is like, look, we just don't want you here anymore for whatever reason.
Right. That's a good point, Shaquita, that you should always be in that mindset of that this is a transition. And if I make a lot of money, I'm making it so I can finance my way out of here. So great point to make. I just want to remind everybody that Shaquita and I are excitedly working on a new platform. It's called marriedwomensbusiness.com. We're obviously two married women, 10 plus years married each, and we think that there's some valuable resources, tools, and conversations that we need to have about sustaining solid, healthy marriages and families. We're also both mothers. We also, again, are both homeschoolers. We think that there's some specific things that parents need to do to raise up amazing young Black women and young Black men. And then, of course, the major part is we believe in financial independence. We're both heavily invested in building multiple streams of income. And again, at Married Women's Business, it's all of those things. We believe that it's a one-stop shop for the married woman. You know, you can talk about, you can get information, resources about marriage, you can get information and resources about parenting, and then above all, the conversation about how do women who are balancing all these areas of their lives also do the important thing of becoming financially independent. So I'd like to say thank you to our viewers for checking out our segment once again. I also thank you to my good friend Shaquita, who again is from ateco.com and lovingtheblackman.com. And I, of course, am Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses with successfulblackwoman.com and healthyblackwoman.com. Thank you, Shaquita, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.